Hello and welcome to this edition, special edition of College Talk Tuesday, Friday edition, here at Lockwood College Consulting. Andy Lockwood, Pearl Lockwood.
Hi, everybody.
Good, she has a voice. Boy, does she have a voice. And what we're going to be doing today is following up on a webinar that we did 2 days ago about the 7 deadliest financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them. And we had a bunch of questions that we didn't get a chance to get to. Just happens. Don't have an excuse for that. Chat was pretty crazy. Had about 140 or 50 people at some point, throwing questions at us. And we also received a few questions beforehand. I also have an answer to the trivia question, which had to do with what was the T-shirt that I was wearing before. A, what movie did it reference, and B, what should it say on the back? A lot of people got the part A right, but not part B. So I'm gonna give that out once we get through some of this content right here. So are you ready to go? I'm gonna fire away some of these questions at you, not all of them.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so let's start with question number. Let's see, I didn't really number these. So,
We don't need a number.
We don't need a number.
We don't need a
stinking
number.
badges. Okay. My daughter and her boyfriend are planning to marry. They will be going into their junior year, fall 2017. I believe that's junior year of college. Married. If plans go through, will they qualify for financial aid retroactive, so it's in play for their junior year, say if they get married in July 2017, or will they only receive aid for their senior year, since the FAFSA will have already been completed previously? That's from Laura.
Okay.
Is there retroactive financial aid?
No.
Right. Will they qualify? I think
I was focused on the romance part of this, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you always do. She likes all those kissy movies.
I do.
Yeah. So I guess the other question, which I'm reading between the lines here, is what change? Are they no longer dependents? Are they now independent college filers since they're married?
Yes, and they can claim each other as well because they become dependent on one another.
Yeah. Okay. So no retroactive. Interesting question. We don't usually get that. So okay.
And congratulations to the happy couple.
Yes. Many happy returns. Where are they registered? Okay. Next question. This is from Rosemary. We recently sold our house and plan to buy another in the spring. Timing wise, would it be better to have less money in the bank when we start the application process, or should we continue to rent and not be homeowners? Also, if I may be so bold, you are bold, small college savings accounts in my daughter's name. Cash them out? ? Thanks, Rosemary.
Well, okay. The answer is it depends what you do, whether you are a renter or you retain the home with the money if you sell your home and you're a renter. If you have it
well, so
in
that's
the
the real
bank,
issue. Where's the money going to be?
Right. If it depends where that money from the sale of the home is going to go. It can go into a place that will make you much more penalty heavy in terms of financial aid, or you could be in a less, more protected, more sheltered asset that you could put this money in, or you could put it in an exempt asset altogether. But the answer, but the answer is it really depends what you do with that money.
So let me take a stab at that too. So you've got a couple of choices, and either way, you need to do some planning. I think that's the real issue here.
Right.
So thanks. So I'm talking now. Don't do that. You do that like when we're off.
Sorry.
Right. So if you have the money in the bank somewhere, that's the same thing as having the money in a home, which you're penalized for if you are contemplating applying to CSS profile schools that penalize you for having home equity. If you're applying to only FAFSA schools and you bought a house, that is not an asset and you're sheltered. So that's another little nuance there. If you are homeless, meaning you have the cash in the bank, as Pearl was saying, you should really think about sheltering those funds, putting them into something that does not count against you. We talked about that on the webinar, and if you have any questions, we have this service that we had mentioned before, and we'll talk about in a few moments here once we get to those questions. So either way, you've got to do some planning, and that's a great question, but there's no clear-cut answer because there's so many moving parts and variables.
Right.
Okay.
Again.
All right, so here's a combination admissions and financial aid question. What's the one thing so maybe we'll each take a stab at this one, Pearl.
Let's hear.
Okay. What's the one thing that we should be doing to ensure my child's best chances of being accepted to her first choice school, as well as getting the most aid possible? For example, should we reach out directly to the school, tell them they're her number one choice, ask about financial aid, etc.? That is from Karen. So, let me handle the best chance of being accepted to her first choice school. I don't know exactly where you are on the admissions timeline. So there's a few things, and this is also something that we didn't really talk about because it's outside the scope of the financial aid mistakes, but this is something that we do. We coach kids through the process of selecting and getting into the top schools. And if I had to pick one word to sum up what it takes to get into a top school, it's marketing. Grades and scores, that stuff is important, but how you market yourself, how you package yourself as a student in terms of serving up what is desirable to the admissions office, that is really critically important. And the earlier you start doing that, in ninth grade, I'm suspicious that you're not in that situation right now. Maybe you have younger kids, but you start creating the body of work that's ultimately going to be judged when you apply to college. So I don't know how much that is helping you, but for anyone else who's watching this, think about this strategically and think about doing things that are different, atypical. So if I was prepared again, I would have the book, The Incomparable Applicant. Can I scoot you off over there to
You want me to Vanna White that for you?
just get the book. I want you to Amazon the book or Uber the book.
I'll drone it.
Okay. So the premise of The Incomparable Applicant is here. This is on Amazon. Shameless plug. Incomparable Applicant. The premise of that is you're competing with kids, maybe 5,000 kids with virtually the same grades and scores, so it's incumbent upon you to do something to stand out, to explain why you are not typical, why you are atypical. So doing that is probably the best bit of advice that I can give you. Also, communicating with the school. You don't have to communicate with the school that it's the number one choice if you apply early decision, because then de facto it's the number one choice. However, there could be financial aid implications that way. So and the reason I say this is because when you apply early decision, not action, but early decision, that means that if they let you in, you are then obligated to go there unless you don't like the financial aid package and you can't negotiate it. You don't really have much leverage to negotiate a package if you apply early decision, because you don't have any other offers from other colleges. So that's another nuance that I'm giving. I'm giving you a full answer here. I'm not sure how much of this is applicable to you specifically because you didn't say that here. But I think that in terms of getting the most aid possible, do you have any comments on that?
Well, again, in terms of getting the most aid, to your point about early decision, if you have competing offers from many schools that can support why you should get more money at the school that you ultimately choose, that of course is going to help you get more aid. So that's one part of it. And then, like we were saying before, you have to plan early and you need to apply to schools strategically that are generous, that are going to give you money. And where do you fall? Like, which schools will you get merit money at? Do you have a sense of that? Because that's something that's part of your strategic planning that you'll need to know.
Yeah, and the rest of the story is understanding the rules of the game. So, and we talked about this briefly. Some types of savings accounts count against you more than others. Some
yes.
don't count against you at all.
I mean, I guess I'm taking for granted, right. And
don't take anything for granted.
True. But the financial aid forms, while on its face may look somewhat straightforward, like a tax return, what goes into figuring out what numbers actually get listed and which do not matter greatly. And it could be a swing of getting a ton of aid or none at all. So making sure those forms and the questions that are asked are done right, and there's a lot of fine print.
Okay. Scooch. Yeah. It's so funny. You're so
I
aggressive.
think I need Velcro.
You're so aggressive. It's funny. So, okay, here's a combination question. My grandson is entering sophomore year. Says he's interested in career or in science or engineering. Science grades are good. Common Core math, not great. He downgraded to regular math from honors math in hopes of getting better grades. Is that a good idea? Then there's some more questions about that. I'm just going to give the short shrift here just for the sake of time here. So that's a question from Rita. Grades and scores, I said, are not the only factor involved. They are at a competitive college. They're roughly 60%. But they are very important, and not only your GPA, but how hard you have challenged yourself, the rigor of the courses that you have taken. So downgrading from an AP to an honors or from an honors to regular is not going to help you in the least. It's going to demonstrate that you're not necessarily trying to avail yourself of the most competitive, challenging classes. Where does that hurt you? It hurts you with the most competitive colleges. So I don't know from this question if you intend, or he or your grandson is thinking about applying to some of the name brand, rear window sticker, ultra competitive Ivy or similar types of colleges. But if he is, that's not a good idea. That's the opposite of what he should be doing.
But it's a balancing act between your ability to demonstrate rigor in your coursework and your ability to keep your grades up, because there's no sense in demonstrating rigor if you're going to pull C's in those classes. So it is truly a balancing
If you
act.
can get, in good faith, an A or a B in an AP class, then you should take it.
I get this question all the time.
Well, I got the question this time. We both get the question. Can we just agree to that we both get the
I
question?
think I get it a little more than you. How many times did you get that question this year?
17. So
More.
There's also other balancing that needs to be done too. I actually had this conversation last night. A lot of kids don't have lunch, and because they're availing themselves, it doesn't mean they're not eating lunch. So don't stress out. It means that they don't have time, for a formal sit down lunch break. And the conversation that I had last night with a client, he was thinking about dropping a particular class in science because our career and majors testing service that he went through indicated to him, which made sense, that he's not really going to end up in a career in science research. So he has this very heavily involved course, science research course that would make him very heavily involved and stay up really late and all that. And he was thinking about dropping it. He was asking me if he should. And my answer was, well, it depends on what you're replacing it with. Because if you're, he's a kid who's looking to apply to some of these top schools.
Okay.
So if he is, as I said, if you're going to just take a free period, while the slacker in me believes that, and the parent in me believes that is something that is very important to do, if I allowed him to do that as his college coach, what in effect we'd be doing is closing the door a little bit towards some of these schools that he aspires to apply to. So I don't, he's talking to his guidance counselor today. I'm going to hopefully get a text from him later today, or maybe on Monday. So we'll see what happens. By the way, please, I don't know if you can see who's here, but please like, comment, share. Let us know that you're watching. If you have any questions, we can try to get them if you post them in the comments. And please share this with any parents who are stressed out and confused about the whole college process. That's a lot of people. I got another question actually this morning from Sandy, and Sandy said, "Is there a list of the 7 sins that I can print out?" So I can just give them to you. There's gluttony. There's sloth. Okay. So I think what she was asking is, we had done this webinar 2 nights ago on the 7 deadly college financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them, and I promised everyone a copy of the speaker's notes, and those, I don't know if you can post this on the fly while I do this.
Let's see.
Those are on the page where we also are running our current FAFSA and CSS profile forms preparation special. So if you go to FAFSAspecial.com and you scroll down at the bottom, there's a little button where you can download the actual notes that we used for the webinar a couple of days ago. So that's it's more than a list. It's an outline with a lot of the stuff that we talked about. All right, let me talk about some other questions. Oh, actually, okay, so let's make that a segue into the brief commercial break here. So the financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the CSS profile, are available in a matter of days, October 1st. And there's a lot of scrambling around. A lot of parents don't really understand that yet. They're confusing, number one, the deal with last year and all prior years when those the FAFSA came out in January. Now it's coming out in October. But to be fair, that doesn't mean that you have to file it in October. It's probably going to be better to file it in October, November at the latest. But you will also have specific, varied deadlines with each college. Each college has a priority financial aid deadline, and if you submit your forms on or before that priority financial aid deadline, you should be fine. If you blow the priority financial aid deadline, which is very, very easy to do, and we have numerous examples that we could pull off the top of our head and spend 2 hours talking about people who are actual clients who just let this slip their mind, or accountants, or lawyers, or other people that are very good with details and paperwork and all that type of thing. So the main thing you should be doing now is, number one, understanding that it's an accelerated timetable this year, but number two, looking at each of your school's priority financial aid deadline. If you have a senior, if you have a junior class of 2018 or younger, you don't have to worry about that. But what you should be doing is starting to get a handle on what all the college costs are and whether you can do anything to improve your eligibility. We help with both of those types of things. So for seniors, rising seniors, if you're interested in having Pearl, because it wouldn't be me, you wouldn't want me doing this, going over, all and preparing all your forms, making sure they're done on time, making sure you're not missing out on any deadlines, taking care of your FSA ID, whatever that is that replaced the PIN, and dealing with all the communications back and forth, from the schools, from the Department of Education, you name it. So you don't sabotage your chances of getting all the money that you need.
Right.
That's why we offer the service. When we did a poll 2 nights ago, and we asked people what their biggest financial aid challenge is, the number one answer was not being able to afford the college their kid deserves to go to, and the second biggest answer was all the above, which included not being able to afford it, not knowing where to start, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing how to do the forms. So that's fairly typical. That's why we have this service. It's an administrative thing to do the forms, but there's also a lot of nuances behind it, and it's really stress reduction. That's really the main business that we're in. I think is stress reduction.
I mean, just as a comment about what this year looks like. I mean, we're Groundhog Day.
Not the T-shirt that I was wearing the other day.
No.
Caddyshack.
Yeah, but
I know.
Same actor.
Yeah. A lot of overlap.
A lot of overlap. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
The great Harold Ramis, I believe, was behind both. Was he not?
What's that? Was he
were
in
those
both?
both Harold Ramis movies?
Could be our next trivia question.
Wow. Especially since we don't know the answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Someone tell us the answer if you're out there listening. Anyhow, this upcoming year, the senior year, for whomever we're speaking to out there, but the senior year is like being on a surfboard and riding waves, because it moves quickly. There are a lot of moving parts. You got to keep your wits about
wet,
you.
It's salty.
But it's a year that definitely runs like a roller coaster and is highly emotional and highly stressful.
Is it a surfboard or a roller coaster?
Well, I think it's actually more like a roller coaster. See, I am not afraid to change my mind and
mix metaphors?
think about something and come away from a position.
Like a politician.
Somewhat like that, but
You're pivoting.
Definitely I'm pivoting.
You're also encroaching.
I am encroaching. I'm going to scoot back.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Let's sit
I
up
think
for a
it's
second.
just
sit up for a
get
second.
rid of the pillow. I have
Really?
enough padding.
All right.
I mean, I'm much shorter than you now, but I don't have any issues like that, so it's okay.
Okay.
All
So there's all these things that happen. You've got the application deadlines. You've got the college financial aid deadlines.
And you yourself may you may find yourself
returns.
needing to be nimble for different reasons. You think you're getting in. And last year it was a big year of people who were thinking these were their target schools ended up being reach schools, and
You mean they didn't get into their targets?
they didn't
right?
get into their
Yeah.
targets. Exactly. And there was-
Admissions Armageddon.
admissions Armageddon, and then people had to kind of switch gears mid-year, quickly go visit while you're under stress, not while you're doing things
Yeah.
in a thoughtful,
Instead of-
planned manner.
Right, instead of planning.
And it could really make all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's the one. If you
Right.
talk to any parent who's already been through this process, either whether they're a client of ours or not or
Yeah.
whatever, and they're going to tell you these types of things.
Yeah.
So if you are, if you know yourself that you're not going, that you need some help, you're honest with yourself. It's okay that
Just
you
because
need
you have
some
a
help.
life outside of wanting to learn this. you know?
Right. Then we really recommend that you take us up on our offer. It's at FAFSA. You already posted it right at FAFSA,
Yes, special.
FAFSAspecial.com,
Yeah.
which is FAFSA special.com.
One of my pet
And
peeves.
there's 3 different choices there, which you can see on there. If you have any questions, you can email us. And it's a combination of a fee to do all the upfront work, and then 2 months later there's a monthly membership fee, which helps cover all the support, all the documents, all the things that the tax returns have to go in once they're ready, and all these other things that we quarterback, the
Right.
Pearl quarterbacks for you. Plus,
Some schools will have their own forms that you'll learn about halfway, and then sometimes your own unique situations will bear other forms because you're a self-employed business owner, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're like, what's a business form supplement?
Yeah.
Okay, these are all
Right.
things
right.
that you have to be prepared to field.
Good. Okay. So that's the commercial break. Let's get back to some of these questions. All right. So the trivia answer. I should have worn the same shirt again. So I had the shirt on before that said something on the front, Bushwood Country Club, which is where the Fay Country Club. It's actually down in Florida.
It is.
Yeah.
Davie, Florida, right?
Yeah. No,
know.
that would be a good trip. No, it isn't Davie. That would be a good trivia question too. It's Grand Oaks. Anyway, so the shirt referenced Caddyshack, which is part A, and part B was what should say in the back. According to my son Jack, who has memorized the movie, our son Jack.
And we're hoping that's going to help him get into college.
I should tell that Harvard story. Okay, if we have time, I'll tell that Harvard story. On the back it says Caddy, Caddie. That's what it said. We got a lot of other good guesses, like Noonan. I think that was from, who was that from? That was from Gillian out in Port Jefferson. This place sucks. I thought it was Bushwood Community College. Caddyshack Caddy Welcome. Caddy Day Golf Tournament. Indian Hill Country Club. That's interesting. That's not right though, but that is interesting. Okay, let's get back to the college stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Would it be better to, and this is actually related to something we already discussed, question from John, would it be better to sell investments and pay back home equity? I know there may be tax issues, but forgetting that, to show less savings. The answer is you can't forget the income issues, because income is actually more important as a factor. It's more heavily weighted. So absolutely do not forget that as a factor. And then what we said similarly before in terms of putting that money into a home, if you're only applying to schools that require the FAFSA, FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, that's a good strategy. If you are also applying to colleges that require not only the FAFSA, but in addition to that, not in lieu of, but in addition to that, the CSS profile, that form looks at your home as an asset, as a resource that you can use to pay for college, and that would not help you at all. You'd just be, it would actually hurt you, because you'd be paying the taxes potentially on selling your investments, and you would be just shifting it, from one place where it counts to another place where it counts. Yes?
Agreed.
See?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for agreeing. Okay. Richard had a question. How does the CSS profile treat illiquid investments when valuing your assets? So what's an example of a liquid versus illiquid?
Oh, okay. A liquid asset would be cash in your savings account. And
You know what else it would be?
what?
It would be
Pretty
pretty much everything.
much all the
Yeah,
assets.
Yeah.
And something that's illiquid is something that has a value, but for some reason is not sellable at this point,
So
or
is
is not
gold-
figure outable.
Is gold liquid?
Gold is liquid.
Because it has a value.
It has a value. You can go to a market and you can sell it.
Yeah, it's got a price per ounce.
But for example, if someone has
Bitcoins?
it's sellable.
Okay.
Yes, value.
Sorry.
And a liquid,
Silver?
often it would refer to maybe
Diamonds?
a piece of property that is not is encumbered or not is partnered up with other non-family members. These are assets nonetheless and illiquid because it is not a resource that that individual or family would be able to use to pay for college.
Well, a lot of colleges will try to rake you over the coals and say you've got to give it some value. You know,
Right.
so in other words, we have clients who are partners in real estate and buildings or land or things like that, and they'll say, yeah, I know it had some value. We paid X in 1998 and whatever, and I'd say, well, if you had to sell it now, what would you get for it?
Right.
And usually there's like, I don't know. I mean, I can't even put a value on it. There's no market for it or whatever. So
Right.
that to me means it's illiquid.
It's a liquid, right?
Yeah. So that's the argument you want to make. It may be a situation where you have to disclose it, use your own discretion. But if it's not disclosable, then because it's a liquid, then that's probably the cleanest thing. Okay. Renee had a question: how to hide a windfall in income which happened only 1 year before college applications?
Okay, well, I think you're basically assuming that when the timing of receiving this windfall did not happen if you in 2000 on your and show up on your 2015 tax
This
return.
sounds like it's going to show up.
Depending on when you incurred this windfall.
Let's assume that it shows up.
If it shows up, it could show
Damn it.
up right on your 1040, and it will count.
Right. So you
But-
can't hide it.
You can't hide it if that's the scenario.
But
The but is, it is, if you are applying to a CSS profile school, there's an explanation section that you would be able to, in a few sentences, explain that that was a one-time event and
A
not income
special-
that can be special
circumstance.
Correct. However, if you are applying to a FAFSA-only school, you're not going to have the opportunity to provide an explanation like that.
The follow-up question was, how can we let colleges know that the future income will not be as high? Same thing. Same answer.
Same thing. Right. And if you
does
are,
that always work?
It does not always work. Unfortunately, I can tell you, my physical therapist.
Let's talk about your ailments.
I don't want to talk about my ailments
Oh.
because I think I'm starting to feel a little better.
Ooh.
Anyway, oh, thanks.
That was
I have a
actually
sister who
that's an,
does that.
that's an inside joke for my sister-in-law.
She's not watching.
Well,
Anyway.
it's recorded.
I know.
Okay. Okay.
Hey.
No,
Anyhow.
there's really no line.
Anywho.
There's no line that I will not cross.
I know.
Okay.
That's what I love about you.
Okay. Good for you. So you were in your physical therapist's office, and you hadn't
Right.
gone to him in 3 years.
Right.
And
Then-
what?
And honestly, the minute he saw me, he went, I should have called you last year. And I said, oh, I remember he had a daughter that was an incredible golfer, ranked, nationally ranked golfer, and that was going to be her ride to fabulousness. Anyhow, he had at the same time, in 2015,
Well, she
Sorry.
was being recruited by Holy Cross.
she was being recruited heavily by Holy Cross.
the Crusaders.
Courted.
You know that?
Getting a huge package. Did not know that.
And by the way, fun fact: I'm a past attendee of Holy Cross basketball camp.
Wow.
When I was in anyway, go ahead.
So
Junior high.
lo and behold, they went through the whole process. They're being courted and graced by the coach. Everything's great. They give her a great financial aid package. And because this is a change, but last year you would provide an estimate of where your income was going to be. He also, this is way too much information. The point is, he ended up selling his business, and there was an artificially
To a bigger healthcare provider, who he
correct.
still works for. That's why you're having this conversation.
That's correct, and that's correct.
Ooh, there's our dog.
And
Hey, Grunk.
he had, like you were describing, a one-time large income event in unfortunately, his base tax year for the financial aid application process that year. And at the 11th hour in May or April, right before she had to really sign on the dotted line, They pulled the whole package back when they got his actual 2015 tax return, and they saw, they were not accounting for it right, and they weren't accounting for the fact that it was a one-time event, this and that. Anyhow, unfortunately, he got the whole package pretty much taken away, and it was too expensive, and there were other other schools that were giving them better packages, and that's
she had to scramble around,
she
and she ended up going
around,
to a school that, frankly, her
arguably,
grades and scores
is
were
why she
way
got
way
that.
higher.
Yes, and she was going to provide to be a very great asset to that school.
She was admitted to an Ivy League school also
Yes.
that she is not going to.
Right.
And instead, she went to a quote unquote lesser school.
Right.
And we'll see what happens, I guess. Right. But what could he have done a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, he could have, knowing this was something on the path, if he had planned for it and wasn't going to have the tax effect of the sale of that business, which was not going to happen more than once, and was somewhat in his control as to when it was going to happen.
Well, exactly. That's actually a
Or they
first
could have,
point.
even if the time, there were different ways to structure it.
That's
it's
what I was gonna
just
say.
to know at the outset that this is a huge bill you're going to come up with, when your kid is a year or so away from going to college.
You can structure sales of businesses.
Right.
You can shelter assets. You
Yes.
can do. Depends. It's an accounting
There
thing.
were a
It's
lot
a
of
college
things they
planning
could
thing.
have done, and
Yeah.
this kid could have been playing golf at Holy Cross with the financial aid package she got originally, or close to it.
And I know you told me that he had spoken to someone in financial aid, and then
Yes.
you asked him, "Did you
Yes.
speak to someone in?"
In admissions.
And what did he say?
He said no, and then I cringed, and then he
Because of the physical therapy?
wasn't because of the physical therapy.
Oh.
It was because he did. Had we been in communication at that time, we would have advised him, and perhaps this would have made the difference, to not only show his appeal, or I don't even know what, if any, kind of real appeal like we handle was put forward, because he handled it himself, and he's a smart guy, and it's not that he's not, but if you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know the nuances of this,
Yep.
you could be out of luck. And it
down to
was very
planning.
real
It
for
comes
him,
down to
and
planning,
it's
yeah.
really very sad, because this kid was groomed and whatever as the golfer, and going to this particular, for years into high school, she was being courted by Holy Cross. Anyway, unfortunately, they never brought it to the attention of admissions. We think that could have really made a difference.
Okay. Let's move on.
Okay.
Unless you have any... No? Is that it? All the advice?
That
Okay.
was
So, all right. Now, this is from Beth. In divorced family situations, is there a way to use the online calculator on college websites? For example, put in all family members, including step-parents, or a way to know how colleges give credit for 2 homes?
Okay.
You want to take a stab at that one?
Yes. Okay.
Stab away.
This is how it works for divorced or separated or single parent homes. There are some schools, there are all the schools require the FAFSA if you're seeking aid, and some schools require this additional form called the CSS profile.
I've heard of that.
300 or so schools require the CSS profile of the 4,000 schools or so that are out there. If your school only requires the FAFSA and you are single, separated, or divorced, or widowed, or single for any reason, you only the custodial parent's financial information is proffered. Okay, so
Go ahead.
what
Just turn
that
around.
means, okay, turn around. So the other parent's information does not come into play in that case, and the custodial parent is determined as the parent with whom the child resides with more than 50% of the time. It is not, it can be, but it is not necessarily the parent who claims that student on their tax return. Okay, that's FAFSA only schools. If you have a CSS profile school, then it is still the custodial parent's information that is used throughout the CSS profile, and then there's a section at the end that does ask for the contact information of the non-custodial parent. Okay, so that applies to about 300 schools. Then, of those 300 or so schools that require the CSS profile, a handful of those schools, not all of them, will require an additional form called the non-custodial parent profile. When you register for the CSS profile, once your registration is filed, it will generate which schools of yours actually require this non-custodial parent profile. That form, the non-custodial parent profile, includes all of the obviously non-custodial parent profiles, financial information, and including their spouse if they have one, et cetera, and so forth. And only those schools are considering both parents and both households' financial information when determining their package.
Okay, so getting back to the net price calculator, I was just answering another question that I'm gonna read aloud to everyone else. So the net price calculator, some of them, well, the deal with the net price calculators and what we're talking about is that every college this has now been mandated for I think 3 years. Every college has to post a net price calculator that's designed to help families understand that they may not have to pay full price. And in fact, the average discount across the board right now for colleges is 48.6%. Private schools discount a whole lot more than public schools because they have more money. But the net price calculators will help you figure out if you're going to be able to fall into that discounted category. It doesn't tell you how. And that's one of the flaws. It doesn't give you strategies on how to get those discounts, which of course is why we have a business. But the second thing is that there's no uniform way for each net price calculator to ask for that information. So they ask for different types of information. So I can't really advise you in terms of how to factor in the X into the net price calculator if you're applying to the colleges, the types of colleges that Pearl mentioned that require the non-custodial parent profile. What I would tell you though is the non-custodial parent's income and savings and assets like the house that you mentioned, those all do come into play. It's not about what they're legally obligated to pay. We get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll hear, well, he's only supposed to pay half of a state school or something like that, and it doesn't matter. The financial aid office and the FAFSA, what they look at are the resources, not the legal obligation.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I don't know exactly, this is a little embarrassing, I don't think that the non-custodial parent's income and savings are penalized at the same high level as the custodial parent profile. I think that varies. So in other words, if let's say the ex-wife makes $100,000 and the ex-husband makes $100,000, I don't think that is counted together as $200,000. I think the non-custodial parent, that amount is haircut slightly, so that may only be penalized at half, at $50,000 or something like that. So it's not. In other words, you may not be dead in the water if that's sort of what you're afraid of, just reading between the lines of what you're asking. But there's really no way to accurately predict it. But the first step is doing what Pearl says, to figure out what forms are required, and especially if there's a non-custodial parent profile involved.
And this is, of course, an area where you can be strategic because you're at the outset. You already know that this is your paradigm, and how you choose the schools and what forms they require should be part of your strategic planning.
Do you realize that our dog Arnold has been licking my foot since he came in this room about 10 minutes ago?
I guess they're salty.
No, I just showered. Thank you. Ew. They're not salty, Pearl. Okay, so let me read a question that I answered in the comments from Jennifer Mormon, Jennifer Fermento Mormon. Thank you for asking, first of all, and please share, please please comment, like you are. And she said the second part, so I missed the first part. So the second part was about if your child has a small savings account, should you empty it before you fill out the FAFSA? My answer is possibly. If it's small, I really wouldn't worry about it. But the answer is possibly, because child savings accounts penalize you much. Who is that guy? Penalize you far more severely than parent accounts. So if you can move money around at the last minute, there's no look back period, I would go ahead and do that. I don't know how much it's really going to matter to you. We work with clients who have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes, that are in the wrong places, where it's more likely to make an impact on you. It's going to also maybe potentially help you qualify for more financial aid. I guess that's the real question there. So thanks for that question. Are there any other comments that you need to get to? I don't know how to get off this page now that I got stuck on here. Did you see the first part of her question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Missing part 1. So can you comment on that? Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, so that's we may pick that up later. Anything we don't get to, we'll go back and look at the comments later. Okay. Audrey asks, what is different about the CSS profile annuities exemption? What is different about the CSS profile annuities exemption? So I think what she was asking, and this, I apologize if this wasn't clear, the FAFSA, remember there's 2 forms. The FAFSA very specifically says your annuities do not count. They are exempt. We don't want to know about the annuities because they don't count as a resource that you should be able to use to pay for college. In fact, they tend to be less liquid. That's part of it, of the public policy behind that rule. In contrast, the CSS profile says, as for annuities, we have 2 rules. If it's a retirement annuity, it doesn't count against you. What was that? Okay. If it's, this dog is like, I'm afraid he's going to step on our internet connection.
Our feed.
Here. Yeah. Don't eat the internet wire, Arnold. What is he doing? This is so funny. I think he's struggling here. If, there you go. If I'm talking about annuities, if it's a non-retirement annuity, then it does count against you. So what's the difference between an annuity that's a retirement annuity versus a non-retirement annuity? A retirement annuity is also known as a qualified annuity. I'm not a financial guy, but this is my layman's terms understanding. It's a qualified annuity, which means that it's in an IRA or it's in a 401k or something like that. It gets the tax benefits under the IRS code. A non-qualified annuity is not one of those retirement accounts. Okay, clear?
Okay.
You agree?
I do.
Love when you agree. Okay, we have a few more here. Laura asked about something about our services. When does our monthly fee end? Is it payable 12 months a year until they graduate college? The answer is that, number 1, you can cancel it at any time. But number 2, anyone who's current, who's with us in the monthly membership, receives unlimited support and receives the following year's filings for free. That's part of the membership, plus other special benefits that we're going to throw in every once in a while. But you can at any time you can drop out. It doesn't it's not like a phone contract or I think I said before a gym contract.
Yes.
Susan Stewart had asked, is a Roth IRA still the best place to shelter cash? I don't think it is the best place necessarily. We're not really qualified to answer that question, just to be totally transparent about this. But the Roth IRA, because it's a retirement account, does not count against you on the financial aid forms. But I'm not so sure that it is as good as some other products that we've seen, some insurance products, once in a while, some annuity products. But I certainly, believe that it's a good place. However, you have to look at how the restrictions on pulling your money out. I think that's the main thing, but I'm not a financial advisor for that one, for that question. All right. I think we had one more. I think we may be done here. Is there anything else you want to say while I fumfer around here?
Well, you can fumfer. I don't really have much to add.
Don't look at my stuff.
I don't like to just fill up the air.
You didn't have any deep thoughts? Okay.
No.
So talk about our system. So when someone signs up with us to do the financial aid forms, what happens first?
Well, we connect. I
Give
get
details, Pearl.
all of your
Jesus, don't be
information.
vague.
I
How?
review your tax return, your asset, all your
Step
asset
1.
information. Yes.
Let's tighten this up. Step 1, they sign up. Step 2, they get a little questionnaire. Step 3,
Tell
they
us a
return.
little bit about yourself.
Yeah, and what schools you're considering, whatever. By the way, this is for seniors. If you have someone who's a junior, then you can absolutely take advantage of the special we're offering at FAFSAspecial.com. But you wouldn't pay the monthly fees until your senior year. So they get the question, they return it to you.
Yeah.
You get, and they send their tax returns, and that's usually done by either email or fax or mail.
Right.
Okay. Then what happens?
Then I analyze all their information, put it into our very fancy system, and
Raggy.
oh, I like it.
Then what?
Then
What if they have questions?
I'm reachable by everything except probably smoke signals. But we email, we talk, we text, we communicate until everything is memorialized in our system, which is a working document throughout the year. has kind of everything, keeps everything tight, keeps all the deadlines in order, keeps
Forms consistent with each
consistent
other.
with one another. Lets us know which forms it needs for this school, etc. And all your deadlines, whether you're early action, etc. And we memorialize everything to make sure you're putting your best financial aid foot forward, and
Your financial aid foot.
And we make sure we
This is
submit
so fun. This is so
all
fun
of
for me.
your forms on time and correctly, and we hold your hand till the end. Eventually, you'll narrow down the list, or it will be narrowed down for you. And
In terms of where your kids
in terms
get in.
of where your kids get in, where your kid is really wanting to go, what schools are giving you what kind of money, and which schools are not. All of these are the moving parts we were talking about earlier. That is unfolds throughout this year.
One of the biggest mistakes, actually, that we did not make our top 7 was when the two different forms are inconsistent with each other.
Yeah,
so one of the cool things about the system that we use,
Right.
which is not only very secure, but it's also very easy for you to use,
Right.
as well as to give our clients access to, is that it prepares both forms at the same time. What this means is you're eliminating, or as much
Being
as
red
possible,
flagged, right.
you are right. So what you want to avoid having happen is being verified. That is the equivalent of an audit. And what happens is the financial aid office takes a closer look at your financial aid forms. And let me tell you, when they take a closer look, they're not necessarily going to say, "Oh,
We found you more money.
yeah, right. You stole my punchline.
Sorry. I knew where you were going.
I deserve that." You want to avoid the extra scrutiny. What you really need to do is have a smooth path, smooth sailing all the way through. And that's, there's so many areas that you may not realize where things can crop up. So they could spot something on your tax returns and say, "Hey, wait a minute, what happened? We saw that you generated some sort of income here, but we don't see the asset that could have possibly created these dividends or this interest.
Right.
What's up with that?" And then they could say, "Yeah, you
Can
know
of
what?
worms.
We are going to we are going to now take a closer look at your financial aid forms, and we're going to adjust the financial aid forms if you don't give us a satisfactory explanation. And that adjustment is never an increased award; it's a decreased award, because they're going to ask you, they're going to say, well, we think you had some money at one point, so we're going to increase the contribution we expect you to be able to make." So those are all things. Plus, just managing the process, managing the deadlines, responding to all there's count. I mean, what are some of the questions that you get? There's countless questions that come from the financial aid office throughout the process.
Well,
Send us this, send us that.
yes. Send us what's IDOC. Send us, how do I get an FSA ID? Even at the outset, when we're just putting things in the form, what does this count? What happens if I have bonds and some have my name on it, some have my husband's name on it?
Right.
And what if my father, a parent's parent, a grandparent holds as a 529? How do we put that on the form? I mean,
Yeah. Is a
there-
529 a child asset? Is a parent
exactly.
asset? Yeah,
There are
all these
endless
things. Yeah.
questions that I'm asked and you're asked, and you got the answers to those questions matter, and how your information gets characterized on these forms matters greatly. This is not a small investment, college.
Well, that's the thing. The whole point is to get your kid to the dream school that he or she deserves. And if that goes well, you don't want to, and they get in, you don't want to then have to look them in the eye and say, I'm sorry, I can't swing it.
Right.
So it's not just filling out forms. It's actually helping you comfortably afford to send your child to the schools that you hope and dream that they can get into.
Yeah.
So that's really what we do with these forms. So go to FAFSA Special. Can you post that one more time? Go to FAFSAspecial.com. The special pricing, you'll never see lower pricing. That ends this Sunday night. So what I would do now, if you're if you're concerned at all about not being able to comfortably afford to send your child, to the top school that you're hoping that he or she gets into, check out what we have for you, and if it's right for you, there's 3 different choices. Pick the one that is right for you. If you have any questions, you can reach us at the office. Maybe you should post our phone number also, which is 516-882-5464. But you knew that. But maybe you guys didn't. Or you can just post a comment right here. However you want to do it, we're available. Okay. I'm done. You want to have lunch or something?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks a lot for watching. Please share this. We would appreciate that. Please help us get the word out to other parents who are
Like it if
struggling.
you liked it.
who are, even if you don't like it, just fake it. And for any other parents who have college-bound teens, they're stressed out, they're struggling, even if they're not seniors or juniors or whatever, get on our distribution group here, because we're going to be constantly doing more of these types of presentations. We're going to be doing presentations about how to get into college. We're going to be doing presentations on how to get something out of college more than what you put in. I'm planning on doing one about athletic recruiting. If you have a student athlete, I'm trying to put something like that together. We're just trying to expand this. So if you like this page, not just this post, but if you actually like this page, then you'll be notified when we hit the airways again. I'm done.
Okay.
You done?
I'm well done.
Can I go, or?
Sure.
Good. All right. Pearl Andy Lockwood signing off. Thanks a lot for joining us. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.